Hey everybody, it's Adam, and today I'm pleased to bring you my first video in my Road to Black Ops 2 series. This video is about the Pick-10 system, and at the end of the video I will feature a class that I will likely run when the game comes out, or at least one that I'd like to talk to you all about, and I'll be doing that for each video in this series. So as you can see here, this is an example of what the Black Ops 2 Pick-10 system looks like. You have slots for your primary weapon, 2 attachments, and a wildcard attachment, your secondary weapon, 2 attachments and a wildcard attachment, 3 perks with the possibility to add 3 more through wildcards, your lethal grenade, your your tactical grenade, excuse me, your 3 wildcard slots, and your 2 score streak slots. So you can't have 3 attachments on either gun without a wildcard. You can't have an extra perk in any of the 3 tiers without a wildcard. And you can't have a second lethal grenade without a wild card. So that's the basics of how the system works. You have all these things to play around with, and how you do so is what makes your character unique. I'm sure there is some finite number of classes that can be generated with a 10-point system like this, but the number I'm sure is in the tens of millions or something like that. Forgive me if I've overstated that, but probably not by much. So the key here with the Pick-10 system is that you're not constrained with your class choices like you were in every other Call of Duty, right? You could choose your weapons and your attachments and even your perks in pretty much every other Call of Duty, but you couldn't select them all independent of each other. So the idea that Treyarch came up with here was that you were going to be able to have complete freedom over how you picked a class, and by having that complete freedom, it would sort of be a game changer. It would make everybody strive to use new and different classes, not every time they play, but certainly more frequently than they did before. Because what Call of Duty has evolved into, even in Black Ops, the first Black Ops, which featured a lot of individuality in classes when the game first came out, and with Modern Warfare 3 with the leveling up the guns and the proficiencies and things like that, there was definitely a lot of innovation there, right? But very quickly it became obvious what the best classes were. If you wanted stealth in Black Ops, you ran Ghost, Sleight of Hand Pro, and Ninja Pro, and you used a silenced FAMAS. It was that simple. In Modern Warfare 3, you used Specialist, a silenced ACR, and by the end of the game's lifetime awareness, which pretty much breaks the game if you have a good headset. So I think what Treyarch wanted to do here was promote a community where 1 or 2 class setups, where 1 or 2 perk setups weren't so dominant that everybody who played were going to use them, right? Because that's really boring. I know every time I play Black Ops, every time my friends play Black Ops, the thing we like to see the least is any lobby that's filled with players wearing Ghost and a silenced FAMAS and Ninja Pro or Last Stand Pro or whatever the heck that is, That's just the most annoying thing you can possibly play against in any time you load up the game. And that's what like a third of everybody that plays this game runs. So it's obnoxious, and frankly, it's not good for the longevity of the game. It's just not fun or interesting under any circumstances. So I think the idea here was we're going to increase the playability of our game, the replayability of our game. We're going to make it more fun for everybody because they're not going to be constrained by these specific choices. They're not going to feel like they have to have this one class to do well. Now look, we all know that at some point superior class setups are going to be found. Even in a system that can generate hundreds of thousands or millions of different class setups, there's still going to be, 10 that are better than every other class there is. There's still going to be 2 or 3 guns, no matter how well they tweak them, that are going to be better than every other gun, right? There's still going to be 2 or 3 perks that are simply more useful overall. There's still going to be 2 or 3 more score streaks that are going to be more useful overall. You guys get the picture. There's going to be classes that are better than others. People are going to abuse them. It's going to piss us all off. But look, at least instead of having to go to a program on the internet that someone creates to create a random class to test ourselves with, to challenge ourselves with, to find a new class setup to entertain our viewers with, we have the option now, we have the luxury now of literally just clicking a bunch of different buttons on the Create a Class screen and coming up with something different and very likely unique. So that being said, let's dive into talking a little bit more about what the Pick-10 system does. And I'm going to start this off with a sip of my delicious Coke Zero. If I was sponsored by anybody, I wish it was Coke. But anyways, so you have your primary weapon. That includes shotguns, SMGs, assault rifles, LMGs, and sniper rifles. That is 1 point. Choosing that primary weapon is 1 point. Then you may select 2 attachments, and each of those is 1 point. That's 3 points out of your 10 if you select just the primary with the 2 attachments. You can also have 3 attachments if you wish, but you have to use what's called a wild card. Now, wild cards, and you can have 3 of them at any given time, are what David Vonderhaar calls game changers for the Pick-10 system, right? They allow you to do something that you shouldn't be able to do. So the wild card called Primary Gunfighter gives you a 3rd attachment on your primary weapon. Now this stays true for your secondary as well. You can have a secondary one with 2 attachments, that's again 3 points, and you can use Secondary Gunfighter to give you a 3rd attachment. Alright, go to your perks. Same thing, perk 1, perk 2, perk 3. There's a wild card called perk 1 Greed, perk 2 Greed, perk 3 Greed, and that allows you to take a second of each of those. So if you wanted to have 6 perks, you would have 6 points free to use those 6 perks, and 3 points into wild cards so that you could select them all. That would be 9 points. So you could have 1 primary or 1 secondary weapon with no attachment on it, as well as those perks. Your lethal grenade counts for 1 point, and if you want to put a second lethal grenade or claymore or whatever on, you have to use the wild card, I believe, called Danger Close to do so. And if you do that, you can have 2. For your tactical grenade slot, you do not have to use a wild card to have 2, but it does cost an extra point to have 2. So you can see that just through some very simple math, if you do a standard Call of Duty class setup, a primary weapon with 1 attachment, a secondary weapon with 1 attachment, 3 perks, 2 grenades, or excuse me, 1 grenade and 2 tactical grenades, you're at 10 points. That's your old basic class setup from pretty much every Call of Duty there is and has been. So that's really intuitive for most people to get into. So the vast majority of people that play the game probably are initially going to think to themselves, oh, okay, I need to choose 3 perks, a primary weapon with an attachment, a secondary, and, you know, tactical and lethal. And that's fine. I guarantee you this game will be 9-10 months down the road, you're still going to see people, I don't even want to guess as to the percentage, but you're still going to probably see a very sizable percentage of people that really only play with what we would consider the basic Call of Duty class setup. Primary, secondary, 3 perks, lethal, and 2 tacticals, or something very, very similar to that, right? Because even though it's not particularly conceptually difficult, I still think there's going to be a certain percentage of people that either simply don't understand the system for whatever reason, or don't want to take the time to learn the system for whatever reason. And that's fine. I mean, that should be the option. One thing that I don't think is in the game, but probably should have been in the game, is a random class generator. There probably should have been something in there that would create a set of default classes if you pressed a button, because I'm telling you, there are going to be people, even though it will blow your mind to even conceive of such a thing, that simply can't figure it out. And that's going to be both a really good thing and a really bad thing, depending on how you look at it. Because you're going to have some players that I think are so inept at using that Pick-10 system that players that are good at it are going to have an innate advantage over them. And I think that one of the real strategies of this game this year is going to be, do you understand the Pick-10 system well enough to take advantage of it? And I think so-called abusing the system is going to be the mark of the better players. So you might have better Twitch skills, and that will still get you a long, long way. But the bottom line is, there are going to be people that know how to create classes that are very, very effective, and I really do think that's going to make a difference. It may never replace gun skill, and it shouldn't, but I think it has the possibility of making bad players better and good players way, way, way better. I think this is another game that is going to really cater to good players, and I really think that's a good thing, because I think good players should be rewarded for being good, and bad players should, of course, have the opportunity to get better. So that's the Pick-10 system in a nutshell, and now let me tell you a little bit about the class I have created for you guys right here. I call this class Standoff. The SIG 556 is also called the SWAT, and it is a 3-shot burst round assault rifle in game. All right, so I have combined that with the millimeter scanner. When I zoom in, just give me a little bit of extra options to see people that are hiding, in buildings, hiding behind walls, whatever, maybe behind smoke screens. Got an extended clip so I don't run out of ammo too fast. Got the perk 1 Greed for flak jacket. I don't want to die from a hunter killer and RCXD, with hardline on there to help me get my kill streaks a little faster. I've got Scavenger and perk 2, and the only reason I'm using Scavenger is because I'm using a Claymore and a Shock Charge. I would not use Scavenger on any class where I was not using secondaries to refill them, because I don't think it's valuable enough to waste a perk slot when I'm not using a lethal and a tactical. I don't think using it just to refill bullets is a good use of the point. I'm using awareness because I'll be able to hear other footsteps better. I'm using the Claymore to give me one flank covered, the Shock Charge to give me another flank covered. I'm using the Hellstorm because I think it'll easily lead into the Lightning Strike, which will easily lead into the Stealth Chopper. And I know the point values, the score streak values for those have changed. And again, in my next few videos, I'm going to tell you what all these perks, guns, score streaks, and attachments are. So thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed.